Much. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Fiona Rare, Public Engagement Specialist at the District of Squamish, and I'm here with Rachel Boguski, Manager of Communications. The objective for today's meeting is to provide an overview of public engagement activities for fall 2025 and receive feedback on plans and engagement tactics. Hearing regularly from the community is a key priority for the District of Squamish to understand and respond to the values, perceptions, needs, and desires of Squamish residents as the community continues to grow and change. Every year, the district engages the public around the upcoming financial plan, and every year, staff learn from past engagements and readjust goals and engagement tactics to better align with feedback from the community and from Council. Given Council's high level of participation in budget engagement activities, Council feedback on specific tactics is helpful and supports more effective planning and execution of the campaign. Staff recommend that Council endorse the proposed budget engagement activities as presented in this presentation to take place in fall 2025. As background, every year the District of Squamish prepares and adopts a financial plan. In previous years, the district's financial plan spanned 5 years. This is the first year the district is planning to extend the financial plan to 10 years. Efforts to involve the community in discussions around the draft financial plan take place each fall with the goal of Council gaining an understanding of community priorities. With the timing of the financial plan adoption shifting to December, a spring public check-in has been implemented to hear early feedback on community priorities. For this year, parts of the 2025 Citizen Satisfaction Survey were designed as early budget feedback and supports Council and staff to understand community priorities. Now, engagement will continue into fall 2025 when the draft 2026 through 2035 financial plan is being discussed through October Council workshops. Fall budget engagement objectives are to foster civic engagement and build trust with community through delivering genuine and inviting opportunities to provide input into financial planning, provide context for tax increases, educate the public on how a municipal budget process works and how the district makes decisions and decides on priorities through a newly developed Budget 101 educational booklet and other materials, educate more young people in civic processes. Staff define young people as ages 25 through 44, which was the largest group of respondents in the 2025 Squamish Citizen Satisfaction Survey. Engage seniors with targeted tactics and events. Better engage equity-deserving residents. Staff define equity-deserving groups as people in communities that experience significant collective barriers to participating in society. Tie in the results of the 2025 Squamish Citizen Satisfaction Survey, and create a variety of ways for the public to engage with Council members at various times and locations across Squamish and in ways that would feel comfortable for many people. District staff.
This is me.
Oh.
Tactics. I think this is me. Okay.
Oh, sure.
District staff propose the following engagement tactics, each with the attendance of some Council members. Trivia night in mid to late September, aiming to engage more young people. Budget bingo, followed by conversation in October at the 55 Activity Center, aiming to engage more seniors. A mayor's drop-in focused on budget in October. Coffee with Council sessions focused on budget. Budget info night on November 15th at the House Sound Inn, including a 20-minute presentation to set the context, followed by a facilitated panel discussion with Council and a public Q&A. This discussion would include topics such as the top 3 priorities from residents and businesses, the financial tools that residents and businesses are most likely to support, how tax dollars are allocated across different departments and services, what the difference is between capital and operating budgets, and how Council decisions are made given competing priorities. In terms of more traditional communications tactics, we propose the following. The creation of a short mayor's video similar to last year's, aiming to inspire residents to civically engage around their local government's financial plan. the creation of a digital Budget 101 educational booklet. This document will include a glossary of terms and an overview of how priorities are decided upon in a budget process to paint a picture of how a financial plan is built. This booklet will utilize already created materials such as a link to our online budget tool, video content, and written material from past years. This document and the mayor's video will be shared through social media, e-newsletters, and it will also be shared upon registration to any event. Digital engagement through Let's Talk Squamish will support the tactics described. These online opportunities will include a Let's Talk Squamish project page linking to budget book with the Q&A tool whereby staff will respond to questions from the community. Overall promotion will be through the usual streams, social media, newspaper and digital advertisements, as well as weekly e-newsletters and targeted invites.
Do the next slide. In terms of council participation, staff propose that 2 to 3 council members attend each event, and as many council members as possible attend the November 13th info night. Ideally, all 7 council members could be a part of the panel discussion that's proposed. In conclusion, and as a reminder, staff recommend that council endorse the proposed budget engagement activities as presented in this presentation to take place in fall 2025. Staff will move forward with planning and executing the outlined engagement tactics following council input. We really look forward to your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, I just wanted to recognize we have Councillor Greenlaw joining remotely as well. So Council, questions on what we've seen here? Maybe I'll get us started. On the last slide, you talked about council participation in the various tactics. So 2 to 3 council members, is that to avoid quorum at these engagements, or is there a specific reason where you're targeting those numbers there? I know everybody for the information night, but is there a reason that you're targeting 2 to 3 there versus the most we can field as a team sort of for those other events?
Yeah, through the chair, we recognize that we're proposing a lot. So in terms of your assumed capacity, we thought 2 to 3 felt manageable potentially. I mean, we welcome your feedback on that. Based on my own personal experience at these events, 2 feels, if there's quite a few people, 2 feels like there's not enough council members to speak with everyone, and 3 feels like a good number. Sometimes the events are smaller in size, and so 2 feels actually quite appropriate. So that's where that number came from.
Okay, thank you. Just 4 is quorum of council, and I just wondered if that played into this at all. So I'm not seeing our corporate officers not making any gestures there, so that's not a concern. So as long as we hit 2, 3 sort of as a minimum, there's going more here. If there is capacity around in council, that would be okay from the staff perspective.
Yeah. Sorry to answer your question. It didn't come up in comms. Okay.
So, all right, I'll leave that there. Go ahead, Councillor Penigo.
Yeah. From my mind, what's proposed here sounds sort of in line with what we've done in the past in terms of amount of engagement or sort of number of events. But we have also, in addition to budget events, had AEP engagement. We were at the farmers market for several weekends, and or a transportation master plan engagement, and all these other additional, which, I'm not sure in the public's mind there's a clear separation. So in that sense, is there additional engagement possibly on other topics that is also happening, or at this point, is this the sort of all of our sort of formalized council interaction opportunities? Like, is there something like an AAT or something coming up where we'll have additional things?
Through the chair, there's usually engagement opportunities throughout. There is engagement opportunities throughout the year. I would say every month, a staff member approaches me with proposed engagement opportunity, wanting to book a venue and borrow engagement equipment, etc. So I assume there would also be other engagement opportunities on other subjects. We could discuss opportunity at the farmers market specific to budget, but we hadn't discussed that thus. It feels like a lot for our department, the number of engagement events proposed, but yeah, open to changing things up for sure.
Go ahead, Councillor.
And I from at first sort of pass, I appreciate what's here, but I do wonder, like, and it's going to be a question of what's the sort of staff load, or you know, is there an opportunity, for example, if we're at staff capacity with this, for us, you know, for us to keep some engagement stuff at the SAC building, and so a couple of counselors can go in on a weekend and grab it and sit in the park for a couple hours and publish it, and we don't need the staff. Or similarly, like, you know, keep a package ready at Brenham Park, or schedule it, and so staff don't have to go, but council knows if two of us show up, agree to show up, we just go in the room, grab the stuff out, sit out at a table for a couple hours, and we don't need that staff. Are those opportunities or things we could consider?
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot of these events don't include staff capacity except for the organizing part, which is something to consider. But certainly we can talk about other engagement opportunities.
So just on that point, to my colleague, are you the category of like coffee with council could happen at Brenham Park, could happen in a park, like, you know, that's very it's a catch-all for how it's been done in cafes and so on. So that could form part of this, or could layer in, like, are the sessions there, like, I guess the question, I'm gonna turn it into a question. I thought it was for you, but maybe it's for staff, is like, what number of coffee with council sessions were you targeting?
We were thinking at least one. We're thinking could be 3, as we've done in the past. Another consideration is to have ongoing coffee with council events on a monthly basis. So this one would be around the budget, and then every month we could have a coffee with council, much like the mayor's drop in on a different topic. So that's another approach to consider.
Yeah, I think in previous discussions with council, we've heard you know, some desire to have more of those coffee with council. And I think there's been this balance between staff asking for our time around the table for this specific engagement, and then council's desire/capacity to do that for this time period, but also what do we want to do more broadly. I'd like to try to stay focused on the budget piece, but if anyone wants to venture any comments on what coffee, you know, what a coffee with the council type initiative could look like ongoing, or the capacity to participate in something like that, we'd welcome those comments here as well. I think that for the coffee with the council in the past, I like the 3 because it gives it opportunities to spread out the 3 events. Mm-hmm. So it gives opportunity to spread out different time of day, different venue, different configuration of council. And I think in the past, we've been able to find a way to get all of those having enough elected officials at them to make it work. So I would like to see 3 coffee with council. I would also be happy to attend those. It's being mayor is one thing, but I'm also a member of council, and that's not something that we did previously. We sort of divided that out, and similarly, I would be happy to have others attend the mayor's drop in as a bit more, maybe a piece of that, or blending the 2. So that's sort of where I am. But comments on the number of of coffee with the council for this particular topic, or more broadly? Councillor Finch.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. Yeah, I like the 3 events, and specifically because it allows us to have one in the morning, one in around midday, and one in the evening. So it's 3 different time frames and potentially 3 different locations. And I just feel that if we spread those 3 around the community in those different time frames, it really opens it up to everybody's work schedule, everybody's family, babysitter schedules. And I don't like the idea of only having one council with coffee. I think we're better off having 3.
Yeah, and I think that availability, I agree with you. I think the availability is for the public as well as for members of council to find one that fits the schedule. It's unlikely we're going to be able to find a day, time, and place that's going to fit everyone on council's schedule, never mind the public. So, yeah, I agree. Other comments on this? Councillor Stoner?
Thank you to the chair. Thanks for this presentation and the thoughtful work in terms of how we're going to engage going forward on one of the most important pieces of work that we do. I really love some of the ideas that are in here, and I think it's a really comprehensive plan. A few things that stood out to me that I was just curious about that we've learned along the way from some of our other work. One was I was curious about the opportunity to translate the Budget 101 booklet into other languages. That was something that we learned through our age-friendly community plan, and so I just wonder if that's an opportunity that we have here.
Through the chair, yes, we transitioned over to an engagement platform called Social Pinpoint, and one of the reasons we did so is because they have an advanced language translation tool that we now have and we're rolling out. And so we will certainly use that. It's quite good. It's not perfect. So for, posters and things like that, we would get the translation double checked.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really exciting. Thank you for that update. I'm really encouraged to hear that. My other question was appreciate the idea around trivia night and budget bingo. I think that helps hopefully liven the debate and discussion around budget, which can sometimes be a little bit dry. And the focus on trying to extend our engagement to different age brackets. I am curious about those younger than 25. So if there's opportunities to solicit feedback, either doing a pop-up at the school or work through leadership, or if the youth council continues that sort of engagement avenue for youth voices at the table.
Thank you. Through the chair, that's a really great feedback. Thank you. And there's certainly opportunities we could execute through, engagement with the Foundry and other organizations, and certainly the youth council. So yeah, we'll take that away. Thanks.
Okay, and then finally, it would be a request of consideration to do a doodle poll for the November 13th date. I appreciate that we might have a hard time finding something that will work for everybody, but I can tell you now it won't work for me. So that's a lot of advance notice. If there's any opportunity to change the date, that'd be appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you for that. How committed are we to that? Is that something that we're in the recommendation that we're endorsing proposed budget activities? Is that date something that has some flexibility to it? I know that we need to be at a certain point in our process to be able to execute that. So it can't move, a month earlier or later, but is there still some ability to shuffle that? Or is that one of the things we're considering with the recommendation we have here?
Through the chair, the venue is booked that date, but I can certainly ask if we can move it to a different date. There was a save the date that went out, I believe, through Jenny. If it didn't get to you, please let me know, because that I always try to give advance notice as soon as we book something. But yeah, I'll send out a doodle poll and we can try to figure out a different date.
Okay, so if we endorse this, there's still room to have that discussion around nailing down the date of that, even though the date's in the report.
Is that
Thank you. Sarah Morris, Deputy Corporate Officer for the District of Squamish. As long as it's not included in Council's motion, staff can work on setting a date for that. It would be great to have clarity for the public. So as soon as possible, that would be appreciated, so staff can circulate that.
Yes, I'm sure council can turn around and doodle poll on this quickly. But I did want to acknowledge the constraints of the just where we are in where we will need to be in the process to do that. So there will be a smaller window of availability there, but I think it's worth worthwhile to make sure that we have the most, the highest amount of participation possible. Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks very much for the work on this. I'm pleased to see the info night going sort of a little bit more to that presentation style and panel discussion style. I think that works. I personally think that works effectively. A question about, and this may be overlapping with finance and communication, the tools we use to communicate the budget. As everybody here knows, I find it very useful to have a digitally filterable, searchable budget. Will one of those be available for the public this year? Or could we work towards that?
Through the chair, yes. Similar to last year, we will have the drill down tool available through Let's Talk Squamish that allows people to get as into the budget as they would like to.
Hold on one second.
Thank you. In addition, I believe you're speaking about the council tool specifically. There isn't plans at this point in time to note that the council tool is before it is actually at the budget info night ready stage, but we certainly can take a look at it. Our efforts right now have been primarily around increasing some of the content of the budget book, which is coming out in the next few weeks.
Thank you for that. Are you good for now? Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, I think just sort of trying to refine my thoughts with the discussion. Again, I really like what's suggested here. It does strike me that most of these things are ones where it's our event and we're trying to attract people to our event. I think an opportunity is to meet people where they are as part of our plan, like Farmers Market or Hampton the Park or Brandon Park or some of these things. And I'll just add to that, like, I think without staff and without materials, we could offer engagement at any of these things. Having some materials and like some of the graphics boards, I find those really fantastic for people to generate conversation, for people to understand. And it's actually really, really helpful to also have staff there. And so, you know, in a perfect world, we have counselors, the boards, and the staff, but, you know, we can still do something with less. And so I'm just, I think I heard that, you know, maybe Public Works and others, they actually have boards and stuff, and they would love well, maybe that's a strong word, would appreciate a counselor to come along and sit in a booth and talk about whatever. So I just wonder if staff have a suggestion how we might consider working in some of those opportunities to engage people where they already are, like starting next week even, or you know, but soon. Does that capacity exist? And like, is there a way we could work it in, or, you know, that's something we can definitely do, but we need to have a separate discussion in September about it, or like.
Through the chair, can I ask a clarifying question? So you're referring to more like pop-up style events where council and or staff kind of pop up at outside grocery stores and Brennan Park and the library, and sometimes we have boards, sometimes we don't. Am I correct in that?
I think so. I think probably a little less outside a store or something, and more like everyone's at the farmer's market on Saturday, or, you know, everyone's at Brennan Park for whatever thing on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, or so things where we know sort of, and more probably community open events than sort of outside of business. But I think generally that pop-up sort of thing.
Like a Brackendale Fall Fair, I don't know, whatever those other things are that fit the timing, because there's two pieces here, I think, Councilor Pringle. One is the broad engagement, and we talk about you know, appetite for more opportunities to engage, whether it's coffee with the council or these pop-up events or so on. But on this specific topic, we do need to be at certain points in the process to engage, to be able to engage with having materials specifically on budget. So with that in mind, I'll go back to staff as far as how you selected what's here and in consideration of those opportunities where maybe there are lots of people somewhere, we can take it to them. I think that's what you're broadly asking, right? Versus creating our entirely our own opportunities versus piggybacking on opportunities where there'll be a lot of people together to talk to.
Yeah, in my mind, it's a little bit of a, if Public Works, they really want to talk about something they're doing, it's not a quote unquote budget thing, but it's a way in to start engaging people on budget in my mind. And so I don't necessarily see those sorts of things, maybe there's existing materials as outside of budget necessarily, but
I think, as I've often said, I think every conversation is a budget conversation, but specific budget conversations are the pieces that we're really digging into here. So for that specific budget engagement, what consideration was done or what opportunities do you see for that type of thing, whether it's pop-up or being at those places where there are a large volume of people already?
Yeah, good question through the chair. I think we took into consideration our staff capacity, and I'm talking more in terms of the communication staff. And, we can only do so much. And so to Councillor Stoner's point, we really wanted to engage people in arguably more interesting and unique ways that are a bit more fun, given the weight of the subject matter. It's dense and it's not fun, and there's ways in which we can lighten it up a bit and also support people to meet each other at these events. Like trivia is a great way to sit around a table and meet your neighbors, and talk about these things and civically engage. And we just thought that sounded really great. And we can only do so much. And so we chose that over traditional pop-ups. Not to say that there's anything wrong with traditional pop-ups, and we can certainly look into adding more. I would just need to, looking at Christina here, staff capacity, we go in. Talk about adding more. I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Hi, Christina Moore, Director of Communications. Yeah, appreciate all the comments, and I've been scribbling notes while Ms. Rayer has been speaking here. Yeah, I think we can go away and take this feedback. I think one of the challenges that we do face is just managing everyone's schedules, including councils, and just creating a program of events and a program of materials and resources that is easy for everyone to sort of plug and play into. But if there is broad interest from council to do more than what we're proposing, which I think is what I'm hearing Councillor Pettingill be interested in, we can certainly take that away and look into some pop-up ideas as well. But I think it really would require an understanding of council's availability in order to be able to do that successfully.
Thank you for that. I don't see any other hands at this point. I think that there's I'll throw something out there and then I'll come to you, Councillor Anderson. I'm hearing when I look at the recommendations, very focused on time frame, like trivia night, late September. We've got some actions through October, so it's really focused in that, like really October, but a little bit late September, and that budget, that main or the final piece that we have in now as mid-November, we'll need to fine tune where that sits. Hopefully we can find something that works for everybody, but that's really the time frame of this project from a public engagement perspective. I do hear, and I wonder how we have that more fulsome conversation around everyone's council's capacity and staff's capacity to facilitate those other engagement activities more broadly throughout the year, and what maybe that is a budget discussion in and of itself to support that. But where can we have that? Because I don't think that hasn't been fully contemplated in the staff report, but we're getting some input that sort of drives that. So go ahead.
I went through the chair. I wonder if we could take this away and the team spoke about this educational booklet, this sort of package idea. I wonder if we can create a bit of a self-serve package for council, and to, you know, to give you that information to kind of pop up on your own in a sense, to be able to, you know, have those conversations at events. We certainly have the communications channels to be able to inform the public that you would be there. And maybe that's just an open conversation we have through our administrative assistants that could, you know, hear from council, hey, I'm going to be at this event this Saturday. I'm going to have my package of materials. Can you let the public know I'll be there and happy to talk about budget? And then we can use our social channels to do that. So maybe it's a bit more of a self-serve approach that gives you some more flexibility without trying to schedule everyone into a rigorous calendar of events.
Okay, so for this conversation, let's stay focused on the budget piece, and we have the recommendations here. I think that there's always something to engage with the public on, and we're often engaging with the item that we didn't set out to engage on. So we have all sorts of material, whether it's annual reports and quarterly budget pieces to the overall budget to all these other initiatives. So let's stay focused on the budget piece for now, but I do think this suggestion of having the ability to amplify councils or alert the public through official channels where council is going to be is a great offer, and we can take that away and work on that as a council. So for the recommendations, sorry, Councillor Anderson.
Mayor Herford, I just had a couple of observations, weren't really questions. I can wait till.
Okay, I have I'm just going to I'll move that we the staff recommendation with and additional work be done to schedule the budget info night and I'll leave it. Yeah. Anyway, so just to be clear on what that expectation is. So it's the staff recommendation with the caveat that some additional work be done to try to find a suitable time to schedule that budget info night. If there is a seconder, I'll speak to it. Councillor Hamilton, thank you. Just briefly, I really like this approach. I think it's, I'm curious what a trivia night looks like. I did get some notification that I was a trivia night answer at a trivia night last night, which, so I'm curious to participate and to see how this goes. I do think that, you know, we need to be trying things to see where we can get some and to try to get to the members of the community that a broad section of the community. So I really appreciate the sort of innovative pieces of this, and I do think the coffee with a counselor. I didn't put it in the motion that we landed on 3, but I think that 3 seems like the right number, and there was some nodding around the table. So. And I just offer that I would be happy to participate in those, as I would also be happy to have more folks participate in the mayor's drop-in. I do want to make sure we stay on side from our corporate officer as far as when and where we have quorum of council. So make sure that that's looked after. But I think this is a plan that should reach some new members or new folks that haven't been engaging in our processes in a new way. And I'd be curious to see how that, what the feedback resulting from that looks like, and if it differs from what we've heard from previous processes. So I think this sets us in a good direction. I'll go to Councillor Hamilton and then Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, thanks very much for the work on organizing all of the public information on the budget. I'll just say one more time, I hope that we can move towards a digitally filterable and searchable tool that the public can use. I find that mechanism really improves my ability to have an informed conversation with a member of public. So if we have any capacity to bring that forward to the public, it would be appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I I observe in events and during conversations with the public during our public input season, if you like, that a lot of the questions are work plan oriented, the district work plan. And these are often questions that come forward to staff as well as councillors. So I also find it useful to explain the budget as being also a work plan, a window into the district's work plan. They're not going to overlap totally, but the questions arise from our work our work plan questions often. Secondly, I do appreciate, and I think I'm in alignment with Councillor Hamilton on this, the element of the public Q&A for the budget info night. It's my observation that members of the public, and formerly myself, we learn from each other in a public setting, hearing other person's questions and hearing together staff or council members' answers to them. I think that's a very valuable part of the exercise, is that public question and answer. We don't know what we're going to encounter, our friends are going to ask, or neighbors. And so there's a learning process in a public question and answer session. I do appreciate the inclusion of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Finch.
Thank you, Mayor Herford. I support the motion, and I actually do have November 13th locked into my calendar. And if ultimately that changes, if I need to bump something, I will, because this will be a priority for me to attend. I love the idea of budget bingo and trivia. Anything to make budgeting fun, I think, is a good thing, and could potentially help us to reach a younger audience, which I also think is a good thing.
Thank you. Other comments on this? Seeing, oh, I don't have her on my screen, sorry. Councillor Greenlaw, go ahead. Sorry if I missed your hand earlier, but go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Hello, can
We
you hear
can,
me?
go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, no, I just wanted to say thanks for all the work on it. And I just wanted to speak in support of the efforts of increasing engagement opportunities, and in particular with the youth. And I like Councillor Pettingill's idea of kind of meeting the residents where they are and piggybacking on existing events. And also to comment on Ms. Moore's comment of, you know, council advising staff of when we are at events so that they can kind of boost that through social media platforms so let the community know. That seems to me a low you know, a low barrier engagement for individuals, and I appreciate that some of this is outside of the scope of the conversation we're having, but it's also the opportunity we have to give feedback. Yeah, so yeah, thanks for the work, and look forward to all the engagement opportunities to come.
Okay, so with seeing no other hands, before I call the question, I was going to say that there will be a doodle poll coming out very shortly, and if we could get all of council to reply to that as soon as possible, then we can nail down that date and get it out to the public so they can put it in their calendars, so they can so we can get the maximum attendance. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion. That was an in favor. Hey, Councillor Greenlaw, with your.
Yes, it was. There's just
Okay, thank you.
technological lags.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Okay, so our next item, sorry, is direction on Squamish Youth Council, and we'll give a second just to swap out get the appropriate staff in place, and we'll get underway with the discussion. I just wanted to double check. Russell, is the stream still up? I didn't recess. Yeah, okay. I think we can get started. So I'll turn it over to staff. Take it away.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council and members of the public. My name is Megan Latimer. I'm the General Manager of Community Services at the district, and my pronouns are she, her.
My name is Jay Dale. I'm the Director of Recreation and Culture. Pronouns are he and him.
So staff are here today to obtain council direction on the Squamish Youth Council program for the 2025-2026 school year. The experience of Squamish Youth Council during the last year has been that requirements for funding and staff time have increased significantly compared to the prior years. At the same time, 6 years have passed since the original adoption of the youth strategy, and it's timely to perhaps conduct a review. Direction is required prior to the 2026 budget process, as the intake for the Squamish Youth Council would occur in September 2025, and the current consulting budget to implement this initiative over the 2025-2026 school year is insufficient. Staff are recommending that the Youth Council program be paused for this coming school year to enable an evaluation of the program as part of an overall Squamish Youth Strategy review. At the June 3rd, 2025 regular business meeting following the Squamish Youth Council annual presentation, Council moved the following motion: that staff bring back a memo on an update and review of the youth strategy implementation for Council discussion at a future committee of the whole. The youth strategy was adopted by Council back in November of 2019, and implementation of the actionable goals began in 2020 and 2021 to enhance support for youth and emerging adults. The establishment of a youth council is one of several recommendations identified in the youth strategy. And the youth council is a council-led initiative with staff providing administrative support and a consultant assisting in the delivery of the program. As additional consulting budget would be required to run the Squamish Youth Council program in its current capacity for the coming school year, staff are recommending that the budget currently committed to the program be utilized to action this motion for review of the youth strategy.
As a part of the understanding of the broader context in the district's overall efforts to deliver on the goals of the youth strategy, it's worth highlighting the annual service agreement the district has in place with Sea to Sky Community Services. The district is providing $280,000 in 2025 to Sea to Sky Community Services to deliver youth services aligned with the youth strategy objectives, with most of the funding supporting operations at the Foundry Sea to Sky for the Squamish Youth Hub. Foundry is a province-wide network of integrated health and wellness services, including primary care for young people ages 12 to 24 in one location, and the Squamish Youth Hub is located on the same premises.
So staff are recommending that the Squamish Youth Council program be paused for the coming school year to enable an evaluation of the program as part of an overall Squamish Youth Strategy review. As I mentioned previously, 6 years have passed since the youth strategy was adopted by Council. So it's an opportune amount of time to be able to review implementation effectiveness and direction. The review would aim to provide a clear understanding of what objectives have been met, identifying areas needing attention, evaluating the alignment of Squamish Youth Council deliverables with the youth strategy, and formulating recommendations for how the district can continue to be impactful in its efforts to support youth. Budget for the Squamish Youth Council implementation in the upcoming school year is proposed to be reallocated towards funding this review. The funding would be used to contract a qualified consultant to lead the review, engage with youth and other key stakeholders to inform the recommendations, which will be brought back to Council. Staff are recommending that the review commence in early 2026 once capacity is available to manage this project. So I've put the recommendations in the report up here before Council. There's also an alternative recommendation provided in the report that was shared with Council for your consideration. And at this point, staff are available to answer any clarifying questions from Council.
Council, questions? Councillor Stone.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and through the chair, a few questions. I think I'll start by trying to seek clarity on where we're at with the budget. So if I go back to 2022, council endorsed a service level change of $25,000. Specifically to support youth council, both the facilitation thereof and administrative expenses. The numbers in the budget as presented are variable and unclear. Everything from there's 10,000 here and there's 10,000 there, and it seems. So I guess my question is, where is that $25,000? And is that the money that would be available in the coming year? Is that $25,000?
Thank you, through the chair. That $25,000 is sitting in the, I believe it's the council public relations budget line. And the division of different budget items there is actually from our general ledger. So for items such as consulting or for food or other things to support the youth council program.
Okay, I'll square that in a second. I have a few too many reports open, so I'll try and get back to it. But in the meantime, I think if we think about looking forward with the proposal that staff are presenting, I'm just seeking some clarity on what the proposed approach would be for reviewing the youth strategy. So with $20,000, who do we expect to lead the work? Is it still sitting with rec services? And how would we propose to engage youth, if at all, in that review, given kind of the history of where it's come from?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. So staff would be looking to contract a consultant to do this work. And we'd be reaching out likely to other municipalities to understand the consultant landscape, to try to find someone qualified. Ideally, there would be someone locally that we could bring on board to do this work as well. Certainly engagement with youth who've been involved in the program, for youth council, as well as beneficiaries of some of the other youth strategy initiatives would be engaged with as part of this. I think that's really important to understand the impact of the strategy so far. In terms of the scope of the review, staff would need to take that away and do some work in terms of looking at what the overall scope would be and what we'd be able to get for a $20,000 budget.
Okay, and then just following up on my last question, I have the right report in front of me now. Just to clarify, so the grants that had previously been flowing through the Squamish Youth Council, that $10,000 amount, does that come out of the general granting budget that council has allocated? So 1% of our, can't remember if it's our capital, goes to granting, and I believe $10,000 of that had been allocated to Youth Council for participatory budgeting through that process. So I'm just trying to figure out where that money is coming. I think that there's $35,000 like altogether that we had allocated in the past. So $25,000 from a service level change and $10,000 to our granting streams. Am I incorrect in that?
Through the chair, we'd have to look into the 10,000. I don't think the person who's managing that budget is in the room. The initial 10,000 from the granting program. However, the 25,000 is indeed in our expenditures under the council public relations sub-project that has numerous accounts associated with it. So it's a mini department in of itself.
Councillor Pettingill.
So just to make sure I'm clear though, in the price, like council does have the option of saying, no, we want the program to continue much as it has been, the youth council, and just the constraint will be the same budget it's always had. Like that is an option available to us.
Thank you. Through the chair, staff are recommending, should council pursue the alternate recommendation that was in the report, which is to continue running the youth council program this fall, is that it would require a budget increase just based on the expenditures that we have seen in previous years and the increase in costs.
My question here is one of the variables I feel is the amount that we've given to the grant funds or the funds used for granting. I'd like to sort out where they're coming from. Like, just if there are pieces to change, should council want to the program to continue or to try to do both things, which is I guess my question is that an amount that can be, to me, it feels like that's an amount that could be varied to affect the overall. So if we could adjust the grant, turn down the amount that they're granting, or maybe eliminate them or take a pause on them running a granting program and reallocate those funds. So I think where those come from, or that any strings associated with those, seems important if we contemplate those things. But we're also here, we have so or is that not a consideration? Can we take, if we moved $10,000 out of the actual, which was 30,300, and went it to 20,300, we're still within, and we can reassess that through take some time off from doing a granting program. Is this an option that staff considered? I feel like it's both the recommendation and the alternate feel quite binary and far apart versus something that's it could be in the middle.
Thank you for the question through the mayor. Staff have not considered in detail the scope and structure of the Youth Council program. This is why staff are recommending a pause to be able to evaluate that, as well as the overall youth strategy. Certainly that is something for council discussion if you would like to change the scope and structure of the current Youth Council program.
Okay. Well, thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks very much for bringing this to us. What do we hope to learn from the consultant's review? I'm struggling to see what question we really have that's unanswered, because we've got the youth strategy. It's not a terribly old document; it's a fairly recent document. And we have a few years of running the Squamish Youth Council. So what is the learning that we're hoping to get out from a consultant?
Through the chair, I think there's multiple facets to the review. So we have a partnership agreement or a service agreement with Sea to Sky Community Services. So part of the youth review will be evaluating our existing service agreements as well, and ensuring that we're meeting the deliverables set out in the youth strategy. The strategy is fairly recent, but there's been a lot of change, especially post-pandemic. So we anticipate that there's been changes in terms of what our objectives are as well. So yeah, I think there's that, and then obviously how the Youth Council fits into the overall service delivery of youth services, and if there's any duplication or ensuring that it meets the objectives in the youth strategy.
Councillor Pettingill.
In speaking to the youth and so on, it appears that that is a piece of the strategy where the outcomes are quite positive and very much aligned, and the budget relative to what's going through Sea to Sky Community Services is quite small for that piece. Insight into what's happening with the community services side of it is a bit more opaque to me. So I'm wondering why there's not a suggestion to sort of fund a review if one is necessary out of that bigger piece, which seems more opaque in terms of outcomes, and why the suggestion is to, pull it and pause this one particular program, which again, the outcomes seem quite positive and sort of, yeah.
Thank you through the chair. So the contract with Sea to Sky Community Services it's already committed for this year. So we could look at that moving into next year, and with the community agreements policy, that is something that we will be looking at regardless. There's an opportunity with the Youth Council program to pause it right now because we are prior to the beginning of the next school year. So that's why it's been brought forward to council now.
So shift gears slightly, like, you know, I was part of the development of the youth strategy. My recollection is a lot of the youth who are engaged, somewhat similar to the youth council, they became the first iteration of the youth council to a large degree. So now we actually had a structure around those youth, and there may be some things we've wanted to tweak. Is there not a is there a reason why we wouldn't sort of pursue or sort of put some constraints around the next iteration of the youth council instead of saying, hey, youth, what do you want to do? Sky's the limit within this budget, which my understanding is where the fiscal constraints have been challenged. Whereas, you know, if we just said do the exact same thing as last year, we don't need an increase. We could maybe put an alternate constraint and say like, hey, here's the budget, use the same structure, but it is a youth-led evaluation of the youth strategy. Is there a reason why we couldn't pursue that? I guess what I'm trying to understand is it really necessary? Because it feels like, and maybe I'm misinterpreting, this is really sort of putting the youth strategy evaluation in the hands of adults and staff, where sort of all the work we've done up to this point has really been trying to push this decision-making and autonomy onto the youth. And is there not a way to continue that path as if a review is necessary?
Thank you for the question through the chair. Certainly, youth would need to be part of any review of the youth strategy. That's absolutely integral. So at this point, we haven't scoped what a review would look like, as I mentioned earlier. So in terms of what the role is that youth are playing, you know, who's leading it, that is something we could bring back to council. However, at this point, staff are here to obtain direction on whether to pause the youth council for this coming year to then repurpose that budget towards a review of the strategy, whatever that looks like.
Councillor Stoner?
Yeah, thank you. I will add some commentary before I ask a question, which is, as the original mover of the motion that initiated this memo, thank you for bringing it back and in presenting some options here. My intention wasn't necessarily to pause youth council in exchange for. So I personally see a lot of value still in youth council. I think it's the one portion of the youth strategy that we are actually excelling at. And I think there might be an opportunity to use youth council as a platform to initiate the review of the youth strategy, which is something that we tried to do a few years ago with the youth and youth council, and it became a little bit challenging from a procedural perspective. And so with the interest, if my council colleagues are willing to support the direction of going forward with the Squamish Youth Council this coming year, I'm just reading in the staff report. It says next steps. So staff would issue a request for proposals for a consultant to run the program at a cost of $20,000 and request an increase in youth council consulting budget to include an additional $10,000 for a $30,000 total budget. As I'm reading that, one, I want to confirm that it's a $30,000 budget. Two, I want to confirm that we have $25,000 in the budget at least based on previous council motions. And so at most you would need $5,000 to cover that gap. And if not, if council's not willing to put an extra $5,000 in, then we could limit the amount of grant funding that we would provide to the youth council for granting programs. Are those accurate statements? Or do we need to review the budget in more detail?
Thank you for the question through the chair. I think in order to clarify, we will need a 5-minute timeout just to make sure that we're clarifying the budget and where all the pieces are, because it sounds like there's numerous people or numerous budget managers involved.
Okay. I had Councillor Hamilton's hand, so we know that if there's any budget specific questions, I want to make sure we flush those out right now so we maximize the impact of this recess. But I also want to make sure we don't have to do multiple timeouts for that. So Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks. The facilitation budget is a fairly large portion of the total Squamish Youth Council budget. One of the things that troubles me about the staff proposal is that the money for next year is being spent on consultants, not on the youth. Not the youth aren't seeing that directly. I do see the potential benefit of the review, but I'm wondering, is there any reason why, if any members of council were interested in facilitating the Squamish Youth Council for no fee, whether that would be legislatively viable?
Through the chair, one thing I will add is that I think through a professional and specialized consultant, we'll ensure that we do the most thorough review of the strategy. I can't speak to the other piece.
So the question was about the program. It's the youth council program itself. The answer might be the same, but that was the question, where if a member of council step forward to do this, to take on this work, is that what you're suggesting? Is that something that's even possible?
I don't have a clear answer for that at the moment. We'd have to do some research.
Okay, something else for the time out? I don't know if that's enough time. Councillor Pettingill, and then I'd like to go to the timeout to get, so we don't stack too many questions here, but go ahead.
Just two things, and for clarity, I heard a mention of a $25,000 budget and a $10,000 budget for total cost of 35. So when staff go away, I'm looking for some understanding of both of those things for clarity. But the other piece is, I mean, we're saying, you know, there always might be some value in a review, but comparatively, like when we look at the total budget for the youth strategy, the scope of the youth strategy compared to like our transportation master plan, some of these other things, what is the, like, is every 6 years a significant review that's 100% of the annual budget a typical thing? Or like, how does this magnitude of review at this frequency line up with how often and how in-depth we review other plans and strategies? Because quite frankly, it seems like it's a, relatively speaking, expensive review very soon after launch, comparatively speaking, but maybe I'm misinterpreting that. So do we have any sense? Like, I think our transportation master plan it's like 15 years between, and a much bigger review, which is understandable. But
okay, we'll go to Ms. Kande for a response.
Thank you, through the mayor. I appreciate the question and the logic behind it, but in terms of the scope of this project and the objective, staff haven't done that analysis. The suggestion, or the recommendation rather, to increase the budget to continue the youth council is just based on experience in terms of the program itself and the needs and the possibility of continuing to run a successful youth council.
Oh, yeah, I'll go to you, but then we have had a request for a timeout, which I think is going to answer some of this, but go ahead.
yeah, and I appreciate that response, but I guess what I'm struggling with is, we've sort of heard about, you know, some question about a piece, like we asked, I think, for a review, a memo about the youth strategy, which in my mind was like a 2-hour, 3-hour exercise to go through the bullet points and saying we're doing this or not kind of thing. And that was the level I had in my mind of a review. And, you know, maybe could have been more clear in what our respective expectations are. It seems like, you know, we've heard a lot about what's working or not, or some changes or whatever with the youth council. For the rest and the majority of the strategy, we've heard it's a big amount, and Sea to Sky Community Services is delivering it, but I haven't really heard anything that speaks to there are concerns or there aren't concerns there, or why we feel like that piece, or maybe I missed it, but it's not clear to me why that whole piece needs a sort of review that would require us to pause the youth council for a whole year.
Thank you through the mayor. The proposal that was put forward is to do a review of the entire youth strategy. One of the major deliverables so far has been the contract with Sea to Sky Community Services. So it'd be also to look at that because that is one of the areas where the district is, we believe, having a lot of impact. Youth Council is one of the other areas. So that's what's been put forward to council.
I'm going to go to Councillor Stoner, and then we're going to go to the timeout. But go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
Thank you through the chair. I think the other thing that I'm just like, I guess a few questions of clarity. Who owns the Squamish Youth Strategy within the district?
Recreations, through the chair, Recreation Services owns the strategy.
Okay, and then who owns the Squamish Youth Council?
Through the chair, that's a council-led initiative that's staff supported for administrative support.
Yeah, okay, so thank you for that clarity. And so I think it's maybe a follow-on question to my council colleagues for consideration during the break, but and also maybe some clarity that staff can bring back is like, I think that this is a bit of a weird project because it's a council-led initiative that is staff supported, and we don't usually have very many of those. And it to date has been delivered with a consultant. And so I guess one of the things that would be helpful to understand is like, how can we, like, is that still a functional structure? And who, I guess, what sort of staff support can we expect for a council-led initiative? Is it fair to assume that we would have any council, like any staff support for a council-led initiative, or is it just like whatever contract value we put in place and whoever from the council table is willing to lead it? But that's the piece that I'm trying to untangle is like, what level of responsibility or ownership can we expect, or should we build into staff's work plan for a staff-supported council-led project? And is that accounted for here? And if we want to move that forward, then how do we account for it in the 2026 budget?
I think that was for, yeah, well, timeout will inform that. So let's do that. Did you want, is 5 enough for this? Do you think, Ms. Glende? 5 minutes is that enough, or would you like 10? Okay, we'll come back at 4 o'clock. We're in recess now. Thank you. Order. Okay, we're back after a timeout. I will go back to staff to fill us in.
Thank you through the mayor. Staff just want to bring back the clarification on the budget questions for youth council. So there's a confirmed recurring $25,000 per year budget for Squamish Youth Council. That's what sits in the council PR budget. Last year for the 2025 budget, council did approve a one-time $10,000 grant amount, which was added into the youth council budget. So that's where I think the confusion is. So for 2025, there's 35,000, but should council wish to maintain that amount, would need to be a service level change for 2026 added to the upcoming financial plan.
And so the 10,000 was a one-time. So it can't be reallocated. It doesn't exist going forward. And the 25,000 is the reoccurring what's in the budget at this point.
That's correct.
Okay. I saw Councillor Pettingill said.
Yeah, so just to make sure though, it's the 2025 fiscal where we do have the 35,000 committed, where we're talking about possibly adjusting and what funding we would need. So it sounds like to run the sort of full program, youth directed as it has been, sort of whatever the youth want to do, with a presumed increase, that money is all there for 2025, which is the year of concern. Is that?
Through the mayor, no, because the program runs over the school year, which is 2025 to 2026, we would have to do a service level change for 2026 to account for the increase.
Councillor Stoner.
The other option is that we just don't provide the same level of monies available for granting through the youth council. So we could stream down the youth council project so that it is focused on a more civic engagement, direct leadership with council, how council works, and perhaps a platform for reviewing the youth strategy to some degree, or at least a performance type of card, and option to engage previous youth council members, go within the schools to do a review of youth strategy, and not do the granting program this year and just hold the budget at $25,000.
Go ahead.
I understand what my colleague is saying, but where I'm missing a piece, and I understand the school year straddles two fiscal years, but for 2025, there was an extra $10,000. It seems that that's not available for the 2025, 2026. So did we have and spend an extra $10,000 in the 2024 to 2025 iteration, like 35,000 in that iteration, or like, is there a carry forward somewhere? Like, where did that 10,000 go?
Through the chair, to answer that question, the $10,000 is in the 25 fiscal, which is the 24 to 25 youth council budget.
And so for clarity then, in the 2024 to 2025, we put 35,000 into the youth council program.
That's correct.
To clarify Councillor Pettingill's point, we only spent 31,000, just shy of, or just over 30,000 of that 35. So there's a just 4,000-ish carryover.
And sorry, I saw you reaching. Would you like to reply to that or confirm?
Just that's correct.
So in the report, it says that there's staff time, communications, corporate services, and so on, cost. Is that would that not be charged to the project, or how is that accounted for when there's that interaction?
Through the chair, it's just absorbed in the staff time. That has not been attributed to the project.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Glendale.
Thank you. Through the mayor, there was another question about the legislative validity of having a council member run the initiative. Staff need to research that, and we can certainly bring that back. If council does choose the alternative recommendation, which is continuing on with the youth council, I'd like to provide a bit of a refresher on how this when it was originally started and why we have a contract for it versus staff time. So it is a council initiative, absolutely, as was clarified, owned by council. There was a contract amount put in council's budget because there is not staff capacity to take on a council initiative. There has always been a commitment that the executive assistant for the mayor does have the administrative capacity to support some level of administration for this initiative. What has occurred over time is the scope creep onto staff, communications, finance, ledge services, and that cannot continue to be absorbed. And that was part of the reason, among others, for bringing this topic up for council consideration around the review of it. Additionally, the actual activities of the Youth Council have seemed to shifted and grown, like for whatever reason. And again, I would recommend that if council does want to continue with the Youth Council, that the focus is, or you refocus or decide as a group to refocus on a civic engagement group for youth. It did tend to creep beyond its terms of reference, and I think that that can happen with a group of very enthusiastic people. But that was the reason that there's a contract. So we either need to fund like a part-time staff member to support council, or the contractor is responsible for all things work-related to support council's initiative.
Thank you. Councillor Pettingill, and then.
Yeah, I'm getting into budget minutia a little bit, but the youth strategy is a rec services responsibility. And so in my mind, a review would come from the rec services budget. Youth council, it's in my mind, and maybe it's incorrect, is almost like council subcontracting to itself from its own budget. You know, an implementation of a piece of the youth strategy, taking it away from rec services, I guess, but it sounds like, again, the sort of non-rec services budget is being asked to fund a rec services initiative. Like, why wouldn't we sort of talk about rec services funding a review, and there's a separate discussion about whether or not we want to continue our own program? Like, why are we sort of putting this rec services initiative under a council budget?
Thank you, through the chair. The funding could come from either budget. If we were to move forward with taking it from council's budget, and Heather Boxer can correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be a more cost neutral option, even though it does mean pausing programming. If you want to take it from rec services budget, we'd put it in as a special operating project, and that would be a service level change.
Councillor Stoner.
I'll think out loud, which is always a little bit risky. But I'm trying to get us to some conclusion here where, so I'll just lay my cards out on the table, which is that I definitely would like to see Youth Council move forward in the coming year, and recognize that we are in a bit of a tight timeline if we want it to run similarly to how we have done it. I think it would be a real shame to lose the momentum that we have built. And I do agree, though, that we could think about how we refresh the terms of reference, who acts as leaders and facilitators in this space. And I do think that there's an interesting opportunity here to use the structure of Youth Council to at least initiate the beginning parts of a review of the youth strategy, recognizing that they won't have insights to all the components that we are potentially funding to support the youth strategy. But they do have lived experience and networks that we know we don't have within the district. So the idea of having 12 to 14 really engaged youth at the table starting in September feels really promising to me. And so I'm just trying to figure out how best we can move this forward in trying to navigate this like in between space of like hearing Ms. Glende saying that we need some clarity on how this works if it's a council-led initiative. and trying to define some boundaries on scope creep into the broader organization. And I guess as I try and sum this up, I'm trying to figure out where to get to. Curious, like, given the time constraint, this is our last meeting in July. Typically, we would start to send out notification and requests for applications mid-August. And we still have to go out to RFP if the contract value is over $10,000. So I'm just, if council is interested in the alternative recommendation, is that feasible from a staff perspective, and who then is responsible to make that happen? Or is that like council is now responsible because it's a council-led strategy and we just run with it?
I suppose I'm going to, thank you for turning it into arriving at a question. I do think that we're likely at I think this is a great question, which is we do have an alternative recommendation, and given that it's here as a formal alternative recommendation with funding associated with it and so on, is it safe to assume that it's possible to execute this in the time frame, which is, I think, the essence of the question?
Through the chair, one thing I will add is in terms of scope, the youth review. I'm not sure if it's advisable to have youth, like the youth council, actually review themselves as a part of the scope of their work. There's clear objectives in the youth strategy as to what the youth council mandate should be. And if we talk about refocusing the purpose of the youth council, I think that is a great place to consider starting. They can be separated. The youth review will also, big part of that is the Sea to Sky Community Services contract, which will be reviewed as a part of the community agreements policy. So there may not, be as high of a priority to embed that into the youth council scope. So just want to add that for context.
Okay. Thank you for that. I think the question, or the remaining question is the alternative recommendation, if council was to pursue that in some form, is how does that get done? What role did we need to go through? We would need to go through an RFP process for the consultant. Is this the first phases of this? Is that staff work, and is that to start recruitment and so on, and then the RFP to secure the consultant services if we need them can run in parallel, and this can happen with the decision that we have with the alternative that's presented? Is that realistic? Is that how that would happen?
Thank you, through the mayor. So yes, staff would follow our normal procurement processes. So I believe it'd be RFQ for an amount of around 20,000. So we'd be reaching out to minimum 3 different potential consultants to see what services they'd be able to provide. And in terms of timelines, you're correct. We are coming in close to September. So I would expect potentially the program would be a bit delayed in terms of starting. So
both things wouldn't happen in tandem, where we could start the recruitment process, and it needs some time to, like, both processes need time to recruit members of and facilitators of. Those would have to happen in sequence, not in parallel.
it would be sequenced, yes. I think we'd be looking to the consultant to be supporting council in that work in terms of recruiting. I believe that's been part of their mandate in previous years.
Okay. So council, I'm happy to have points of clarity asked to staff. I do think that we've had a lot of answers here, and we're likely at the point of the discussion where this is for your colleagues. So if is this a question for staff? I'll just venture some thoughts here. Is I think I would like to see youth council can continue in some in some form. I think that there's so whether that's in the alternative or some related motion, I think a stronger connection to council makes sense to me on what that looks like, whether it's reporting back, having more members of council represented in the meetings, static appointments or rotating, whatever, all those things that we can do to bring that closer. And I would suggest that the piece that I'm most comfortable adjusting is the amount of granting that program is in Youth Council is administering. Seems like could be some middle ground there, but I'm not all the way there yet to quite propose a motion. So I'd like to hear from maybe a straw poll or comments around. We have a staff recommendation, we have the alternative, and just where everyone is at on this, we can try to craft a motion that satisfies the majority of council. So that's where I am. I'll go to Councillor Pettingill next.
Yeah, I was hoping just to sort of lay out my feelings and then we can sort of see. So again, when I supported Councillor Stoner's resolution for a memo, I was not wanting or feeling a need, and I still don't, for a $20,000 adult-led review of the youth strategy. It's just not, I was thinking a couple hours of staff time to sort of, are there key areas we can obviously see are missing? And then maybe we have a deeper discussion if we need to, but not. So I would like to see Youth Council continue. I think in my mind, it's reasonable. We've assigned counselors to different committees and so on. I expect we might need some either staff or outside assistance in doing something, but I would invite and expect and happily be involved. And you know, again, I was involved in the youth strategy development. My recollection is it was, I would say it was not a consultant. We're getting into semantics here, but it was facilitated where the youth were brought in and supported, and they really developed the whole strategy, including the youth council part and the whole thing. And so if we were to do any review, I would want it to be in that framework done, and we call it the youth council, with a facilitator to support them in doing the review. And so it would be either that in my mind, or, you know, hiring a facilitator to help a couple counselors to really decide the terms of reference. And we might tighten up what the program is this year to something that we could, between the facilitator and whoever from council was supporting it, could make it happen. And that may happen. Some of us do that in August, or maybe we do it in September, launch it. But that's where my head is at. I would really like to see this program continue in some form as well.
Thank you. Other thoughts on this generally? Councillor Hamilton.
I think in the same vein as Councillor Pettingill, I'd really like to see this program continue. I don't see, I also didn't envision a $20,000 review of the Squamish, of the Youth Council. I think that I see Mr. Deo's reservation about having Youth Council review their own process. But ultimately that I actually think that's part of the value of the Youth Council, asking youth to really think outside themselves and think from a larger community perspective. It's one of the big challenges of being a community leader. And one of the things we hope to inspire from our youth through the process. So I'm more supportive of a process that will have some form of facilitator, encouraging, allowing, helping the Squamish Youth Council perform a review of their own work. Ultimately, we are responsible for accepting the outcome of that report or review or not. But I'm more interested in seeing the youth be a more fundamental part of this review process, facilitated as opposed to consulted. And I'm absolutely willing to be a much larger participant within the Squamish Youth Council if that's open and available to facilitate the process.
Councillor Anderson?
Excuse me. I too am sympathetic to seeing a continuation of the Youth Council project in some form. I believe it should be streamlined significantly to address the scope creep concerns that have been highlighted in the discussion. With respect to the youth strategy, it has 4 pillars or themes. The Youth Council relates to the Speak Up and Leadership theme. We also have the Emerging Adults theme, adult life skills for youth. We have the Services and Program scheme. The one I'd like to highlight in an observation is the Spaces and Places theme. In the youth strategy document, it refers to youth-friendly spaces. We can immediately think of the Youth Hub, the Foundry, neighborhood centers are referenced there, but also parks and facilities such as gymnasiums, music and art spaces. So here we have an overlap with an upcoming, in my view, pressing need for an overdue review of our Parks and Recreation Master Plan, and also our Arts, Cultural and Heritage Strategy, Cultural Facilities Planning element, which is Tactic 6.4. These are also important tasks in which youth and youth programming and services have a large stake. So I guess the observation I'm making here is that when we consider a youth strategy review, and in particular for that pillar or element of spaces and places, that we need to acknowledge this overlap and take it into account somehow. And to my mind, I think that let's keep in mind the Youth Council is just one part of one pillar. I'd like to see that go forward in a streamlined form, but I'd also like to sort out where we're at with spaces and places, because these are pressing needs. We have developers coming forward asking us, what should I do with this space, and what's, I think that, to my mind, this is pressing to address this. So I would hope that consideration of a youth strategy, whatever budget, is going to find some accounting as to how it works together with cultural facilities planning and recreational facilities planning. Thank you. I hope I'm reasonably coherent in expressing those points of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments on this? I'm hearing general support for continuation of Youth Council in some ways. So I'm looking forward to. I see your hand, Councillor Greenlaw. You're on deck. So working towards as a group a motion that'll get us there is where I feel like we're going. Councillor Greenlaw.
Yeah, thanks to the chair. I'm definitely strongly in support of continuing the Youth Council without interruption. I think we should lean more heavily on the youth and our council to bring it more into alignment with our budgetary and capacity constraints. In this meeting and in our previous meetings, we've emphasized the importance and desire of engaging youth, and to pause this youth council and not prioritize it is in direct contradiction of those desires, and that is really important work. We really need to engage the youth in governance, because there's a lot of weird stuff happening. But anyways, and I absolutely think that the youth can at least provide, the students involved right now can at least provide some review of the work that they've been doing and how they can be more efficient and what their role should be and their suggestions. I think that's I think they're a wealth of information that we could really tap into without the additional expense of engaging consultants in that capacity. I think that's something that we should explore first. So thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner.
I'd like to propose the following motion: that Council directs staff to continue the Squamish Youth Council in the current format for the 25-26 school year within the existing $25,000 budget, and that 3 members of council be tasked to work with staff to advance this in a timely manner.
Seconding that, Councillor Pettingill, go ahead.
So I think I've made my comments fairly clear that I am see huge value in this work. I think it's one of the pieces of the youth council, or sorry, of the youth strategy that is working. And while there are some tweaks that can be made to align it within the existing budget, and I think some ongoing conversations around how we ensure it doesn't creep too much in scope within the organization, it is a valuable part of the work that we do. It's been identified as a priority for this council, and I think losing momentum now would be really unfortunate. I think we have lots of experiences with Youth Council from the last 5 years that we can learn from. And I think that having a little bit more of active engagement from council can help us figure out the gray areas of where we work with staff and where we need to go to RFP or not with that $10,000 threshold. So I haven't named specific folks from this table, but I do think that before we leave this conversation, we should do so because the timelines are short. But yeah, I think 3 folks and within the $25,000 budget is reasonable. And I think to me, we heard that we spent $30,000 this past year. $10,000 of that was in granting monies, and that granting program through the Youth Council has varied in different structures over the years. So I don't think they need the full $10,000 this year. That gives us a little bit of time to reconsider what that granting program can look like and how we retool or restructure Youth Council to be a little bit more around civic engagement as opposed to necessarily participatory budgeting, which it has kind of led to over the last little while. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Pettigill.
Yeah, I support this resolution. I think it encapsulates the majority of our discussions. One piece, just thinking about it, to get a bit of clarity from my colleague on the current format piece. Does that preclude sort of within the general structure, thinking about a review as opposed to a granting thing, or are we really, is the intent of that, and I don't have a strong feeling either way, that we are sort of committing ourselves to some sort of event granting skate night type of thing like we've had, and that's sort of what we're committing to, or we're leaving it more open? Would you?
The intention through the motion was to allow the 3 individuals that we will nominate to work through the details, because I don't think we'll get there today.
Yeah.
And to follow on that, I think it will depend on who is around the table and how much capacity they have. And so I think that also changes what we might want a consultant or a facilitator for. So if there's 3 council members who want to do all the work, who want to do all the administration and work just directly with staff and don't think that they want facilitation support, then that's one option. So I think to me, the language here is around getting it up and running, get the application form out for mid-August, and have a group of 3 of us to determine how we work through the staff consultant council component.
Council, I just circulated if everyone didn't have it or have it open, the Squamish Youth Council FAQ, which has a lot of guidance, and I think Claire may offer some clarity to the motion that was, in its current form. So I just wanted to mention that was in your inboxes. It's also on the website for those that want to look for Squamish Youth Council FAQ. I'll go to Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think that the motion put forward captures the spirit of what I've heard from many councillors. And I'm certainly willing to be one of the people to put in more time and work to facilitate the Squamish Youth Council project.
Councillor Finch.
Thank you, Mayor Herford. I support the motion, and here in front of me, I have got the youth strategy, and there's a quote that says, "Involve youth more directly when making decisions that affect us." Grade 9 student. A grade 9 student who was involved from the very beginning, and I believe was on youth council every year through to graduation. Side note, but I think that this is an important point that gets to where this motion is taking us. The staff report and the staff recommendation, I didn't feel like there was a lot of youth involvement there. And this gets us to what I think is a more appropriate level of potential youth involvement, with 3 of our council members deciding that they want to step up and really take this on.
Thank you. Question to staff. So we've got a motion on the floor that's about continuing, or that addresses the youth council question. Doesn't address the review of the youth strategy question that was in the report. So if this is successful, that review question, does that still exist with staff, and how would we address that? Or does this mean that we deciding by this motion that a review isn't of a high priority for council, and it will feed into some future budget debate? Or is this something we should expect to hear about during budget discussions this fall?
Thank you, through the mayor. At this point, staff have not included a special operating project for a separate youth strategy review at this time. Should council direct us to, we could do that.
And through the chair, we also, as mentioned, will evaluate the Sea to Sky Community Services Agreement through the Community Agreements Policy, which is in essence a review of our youth services program.
Okay. And is that in 2026?
Capacity pending. We hope to start that process in 2026.
Okay, thank you. I think you already spoke on. I'm going to go and then I'm supportive of this direction. I think it's important that we assess and reassess the effectiveness of all of our programs, and this is one where we've had a lot of successes, but there's also room for improvement. So I'm happy to I'll be voting in support of this initiative. I think a review of the youth strategy I think could be worthwhile. We've heard that there's other ways that portions of that could get done, but the concept of stepping away from one of the recommendations of it to assess whether we're doing it or not I found quite challenging. So I'm happy that it sounds like we've got council support here to continue youth council as a concept, and to refine that in the year ahead, school year ahead, which is how youth like to judge years. It seems as a September to June thing. So happy to support. I'll go to Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, and I'm not proposing this, but just to my the question of staff just there, it sounds like one option we could have is to, in the first meeting or in an early meeting, review with youth. Like, do you feel that a review is necessary, and should we make that our project? I mean, that is a direction this could go theoretically. I would also say, in my mind, we've identified 3 people, or we've noted that 3 people. We haven't identified them yet, but that doesn't preclude the rest of us from being on the other end of a phone call and here's my thoughts, or like, yeah, I'm not one of the 3, but I'm happy to sit down and have a coffee, go through an agenda review with some youth or whatever. And so to that end, I would be happy to be one of the 3. Also very happy to sort of be ready to support any way I can.
Okay, well, let's go with we'll focus on the motion that we have, and we'll deal with the who those 3 are next up. I think it'd be great to leave this meeting with that. And I have Councillor Greenlaw's hand, and then I will go. Last word goes to you, Councillor Greenlaw, then I'll call the question.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to support the resolution on the floor, and I also wanted to say that I'm happy to support Youth Council any way that I can as well moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you. So we'll call the question. All in favor? And all in favor. Motion carries unanimously. So now to the matter of, I do think it's important that we leave here with at least the 3 people that are going to handle the first portion of this. I think if we don't have, if everyone's excited about being involved. There's other ways we can harness that capacity. But when I think about having three people, three counselors appointed to taking ownership of youth council, I think that it's important that we know what that is. Some of that will be upfront to work through some of the issues that we've discovered today, but also there are the monthly commitment to sort of be that connection at those meetings as well, which I believe is it 9-10 meetings throughout the year ahead. So I'm happy to. I would like to be part of that, given the experience both from last term and this term to date, and can bring some context to how things to where we are and where we could go. Yeah, so we'd be looking for some members of council to sort of lead that part. But if this isn't the be all end all for being involved with youth council, if you'd like to be, as Councillor Pettingill mentioned, there can be other opportunities to support, and we can even the three that end up being appointed here part of that could be harnessing the capacity of council more broadly. It's just we can't go over 3 for quorum in meetings around this. So I've heard some suggestions of who would like to be involved. In other cases, the mayor makes a recommendation on external appointments, and that's brought to council for approval. I think here I'll venture the same as a starting point, and I'm inviting debate on this. This isn't a challenge. I would say Councillor Stoner brought this motion forward, and it also comes with some youth council experience. I've mentioned that I think I could be a valuable part of this equation, and I also heard from Councillor Hamilton. Actually, I think I heard everybody said positive things about participating here. So I'm going to just to start the debate that the mayor, Councillor Stoner, and Councillor Hamilton be council's representatives on the youth council project. I'll make that motion, and if it's seconded, do you accept? I guess it's a nomination type thing here. Is that reasonable to everyone, the people I've named?
So, not sure seconding or amending.
That's okay.
I would certainly accept a nomination. I think that it may be wise to not have the mayor on the body of 3, and I'll explain why. Not because you bring valuable experience from your experience on youth council, but there becomes an inherent power dynamic amongst those 3, both operating as the 3 and within the eyes of the future Squamish Youth Council. And I think that having 3 councillors may give a more balanced sort of management structure or facilitation structure. And we can then bring in the power of the mayor as needed in spaces where the mayor can really contribute with the power of the mayor.
Okay, so my motion has not been seconded. So I would look for an alternative motion then, or a seconder to the motion as moved. Go ahead.
So an alternative motion, Councillor Pettingill spoke to his initial time with the Squamish Youth Council. So I'll put forward a motion that Councillor Pettingill, Councillor Hamilton, and Councillor Stoner be appointed as the Squamish Youth Council, don't know what to call it, facilitating team.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Similarly, do you accept? We don't really have a process for this, so we're creating it as we go here. Do you have capacity to take that on, Councillor Pettingill? I guess that's the first thing, and if you do, I'd invite you to second it.
I guess I would, for discussion, I'll frame it as, again, I would be very happy to be part of this. Again, also happy if someone wants to amend, to give one of my colleagues the opportunity and to facilitate where I can. So I'm a little bit, I want it and I want to support my colleagues. So that's where I am. I'm a little bit torn.
Okay, we're looking for a seconder for the motion to get going, or another motion that that can be seconded. And you're second? Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. I think I heard generally if your motion is seconded, you can speak to it. I think you spoke to it while making it, if that's okay. Councilor Pringle, do you have additional comments, other comments on this structure? Go ahead, Councilor Finch.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Herford. It seems a bit odd to me that I'm about to support a motion where one of the named people isn't sure that they want to be involved, and another member of council has distinctly said they would take it on. Nonetheless, I'll support this motion.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be speaking in favor of the motion. The important thing to me is that the youth, that the work continues. I'm happy to support that work. I think that I'm also happy. I mean, there was a tremendous amount of time and energy and capacity that went into this. So I'm happy to be relieved of that in some ways. However, the connection to what happens in this building and the organization, I think, is the challenge that that these three people point to this may face. But I'm also happy to support that. But that'd be the caution. This also isn't something that is set in stone. So that's supportive myself, and we've heard general support around the table for sort of bringing in all of our capacities to move this forward. So I'll be in support of this, and for those reasons. Any other comments on this? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I will support the motion on the floor. Thank my council colleagues for the recognition, and I'm very excited to do this work, and I agree that it's just a starting point. So to me, this is committing to doing the work to help get it off the ground for the first bit, and also ensuring that we are doing a better job of reporting back to this table, to creating those connections between youth council and council, and re-envisioning that. So whether that comes back as memos, as direct engagement with youth council, I think that there's lots of opportunities there. So looking forward to bottoming that out and bringing a great program forward for the coming year.
Thank you. Just as I'm thinking this through, I think we'll need to really be careful with quorum as we do this. So if the group of three wants to meet with we just really need to be careful of that as we bring in those extra capacities, whether that's at a youth council meeting or privately. So our corporate officers nodding in there. So I just want to flag that as this work advances. Councillor Greenlaw, I think I saw your hand earlier.
Well, yeah, I just think, well, I think it would be better to have more gender representation on this, in this panel, but I realize that's I don't know, self-serving / whatever statement to make. It's just that there's a lot of extremism happening that's targeting young men right now. And I think it's really important to empower more women to get into politics, but anyways, this is the motion on the floor, so I don't know if I really support it, but whatever.
Okay, thank you. I think having an odd number is hard to have a balance just mathematically, but go ahead.
Well, you could have 2 women instead of 2 men. That's kind of what I was saying.
Yeah, I mean, just to my colleague, I would not take offense if you wanted to make an amendment to switch me out, or so, I sort of leave it to you and
Okay, I'll propose an amendment then that it's Councillor Greenlaw, Pettengill, and Stoner.
Sorry, you're seconding that. So sorry, the amendment was that Councillor, go ahead one more time. I just want to make sure we said that right. I think, did I just hear that? What's your amendment?
Greenlaw, Pettengill, and Stoner.
Okay. And you're seconding that, Councillor Hamilton? Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I had that right. Any comments on this? Call the question. All in favor of the amendment? Any opposed? Okay, the main motion as amended. I'll just call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay. So next up, we have the Downtown Business Improvement Area Bylaw. Then we have some adoptions. So I'm going to suggest we suspend the order of the agenda to move through the adoptions while the staff gets ready for the presentation on the Downtown Business Improvement Association bylaw. So I will move the first adoption, which is the housing agreement for 1001 Finch Drive, Phase 1, second by Councillor Hamilton. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have District of Squamish zoning bylaw number 2200-2011 amendment bylaw. This is regarding Upper Finch. I will move that. Councillor Hamilton seconds. All in favor? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I will be not supporting this. I've spoken to the risk assessment pipeline, which I don't have. And so for that reason, I can't support.
Thank you. So all in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Greenlaw and Councillor Pettingill oppose. Motion carries. Next is housing agreement for 38006 Cleveland Avenue for the market rental units. I'll move that. Second by Councillor Hamilton. All in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Greenlaw, was that in opposition? No. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have District of Squamish 2025 to 2029 5-year financial plan bylaw. And this is an amendment regarding Squamish Search and Rescue Society. I will move that if there's a seconder. Second by Councillor Hamilton. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we are now back to the District of Squamish Downtown Business Improvement Area Bylaw, number 3182, 2025.
Through your chair. Thank you, Council, for your time this afternoon. I'll try and move quickly through my presentation as we're a little bit behind on the agenda. My name is Sarah Morris. I'm the Manager of Legislative Services here at the District, and I'm joined by Melissa Von Blodeau, who is the Director of Corporate Services. And today we're presenting the Downtown Business Improvement Area Bylaw number 3182, 2025 for first 3 readings. So the objective today is twofold, to present the bylaw for first, second, and third reading, and also for Council to initiate a petition against process to establish a local area service. So there's currently a bylaw in effect for the BIA for a local area service, and that expires in March of 2026. So 2025 is the last funding year in that bylaw. And the BIA have requested Council to initiate a process to renew this local area service, and a correspondence has been attached with Council's agenda for consideration today. So there are 2 ways the Council can move forward with renewing this local area service. And the first one is defined by Section 212 of the Community Charter, and that would be a process ran by the applicant, so the BIA, or the Business Improvement Association. I'll refer to them as the BIA throughout the presentation. So, and that would require the BIA to gather at least gather support from at least 50% of property owners within the geographic area identified to support the proposed local area service initiative. And those 50% of property owners also need to equate to 50% of the property value. So the second process is the one that staff are recommending and the BIA have requested, and that is a process, a local area service on Council initiative, and that is in accordance with Section 213 of the Community Charter.
Under this process, the district advises property owners that council will enact a bylaw unless more than half of landowners representing more than 50% of assessed value registered their dissent. The process is also referred to as a petition against process. The BIA have requested this process and staff are in support of this option. So should council proceed with the petition against process, they'll be required to obtain property owner approval. So following 3 readings of the bylaw, a notice is mailed out and that is accompanied with a petition against form. And that's mailed out to all Class 6 property owners, so those within the proposed boundary that are zoned as commercial properties. Then the district would proceed with advertising twice in the newspaper in accordance with Section 94 of the Community Charter and making petitions available at Municipal Hall. Those would remain available at Municipal Hall for 30 days after the second advertisement is circulated in the newspaper. It's important for council to know that this is a statutory process, and so the district's involvement is just in the execution of the statutory requirements, and staff can answer any questions related to that. However, any questions related to the BIA themselves or the services offered by the BIA or Business Improvement Association can be directed through the BIA. They have apologized that they couldn't attend today just based on the agenda shifting time. They were unable to make it at this time. So the BIA proposal has been included in council's package and it is presented on the slide here. Over 2026 to 2030, there's a 2% increase per year. However, there is a little bit of a jump from the 2025 amount, and that's based on the fact that it has been a fixed amount for the past 5 years. Actually 6, because in 2020 it was the same amount as well. And that amount was based on the coming out of the pandemic and a little bit of uncertainty there. And so that's why the bylaw was fixed at that time, at that rate. In the 2016 bylaw, which preceded the current bylaw, there was a 2.5% annual increase included in that bylaw year over year. And it also wanted to note at this time that the BIA are not proposing a boundary change, so the boundaries are remaining the same as the current bylaw. They still have an option. If they wish to amend or expand their bylaws in the future, we could move forward with a bylaw amendment at the time. So the next steps for council today is, if they do support staff's recommendations, is that we would proceed as staff with preparing for the petition against process. We would run that through September and October and then bring back results in November to council and request adoption of the bylaw unless we receive petitions against that are above 50% of the number of property owners and more than 50% of the value of those properties. And so there are a couple of recommendations in front of council today. The first 2 are shown on the screen. And so that is that council pass a motion in support of the council initiated process, and that council provide the first 3 readings to the new bylaw. And then continued, this is related to the statutory requirements. And so council initiate the local service area subject to the results of a petition against process. So that would happen once the bylaw was adopted, and then approve the petition response form attached as attachment 2 with your report. Direct staff to make the forms available starting on September 11th, and then set the deadline for response forms at 4:30 on October 20th. And just important note there that number 4 is, it is a statutory requirement for council to pass that one. So we need that one. And then finally, that the corporate officer provide 2 notices in the Squamish Chief on September 11th and 18, 2025. And that concludes the presentation.
Thank you. Any questions on this, council? Go ahead, Councillor Friend.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. I noted in the report to council, the boundary map, it's got purple property dots on the various properties. including Junction Park, which is split zoned, Stan Clark Park, zone P2, Winnick Parks, also split zoned M3 and P3, Municipal Hall, which is a P2 zone, the library, I'm not sure what that zoning is because the GIS map doesn't actually provide that info. School board office, which is zoned I1, school board bus parking lot, also I1. Do all of these government owned lots, do the owners of those pay into the BIA currently? Do you know?
Thank you, through the chair. Thanks for the catch, Councillor French. This has been provided to us by our GIS team. However, the properties that you have identified do not pay into the tax currently, so we could amend that map.
Okay, good. And question number 2, the current BIA boundary, you touched on that. It doesn't include the properties north of Pemberton Avenue. So Chieftain Center is outside, Squamish Station, Jumar, McDonald's, 7-Eleven, Petrocan. The buildings at 37804 to 37846 3rd Avenue, and all of the 3rd Avenue properties on the east side of the road between Westminster Street and Vancouver Street. So these are all places where there is commercial property, and in my opinion, benefits from the work and the marketing of BIA. So I'm wondering about, does this 5-year renewal lock in the current boundary through to 2031? Is it possible to introduce a boundary expansion at some time before the end of the 5-year term? And could council entertain a BIA request, say 2 years from now, to expand the BIA boundary?
Thank you, through you, Chair. The process does not lock in the BIA or prohibit them from expanding. They can propose an amendment. It's actually lower risk if they proceed with an amendment for an expansion, as the expansion properties are the properties who would have to register a petition against in that process. And so the request from the BIA is to keep the boundaries as they are. They've done their own research and done some polling, I believe, and they do not want to request an expansion at this time.
Okay, not the answer I expected, and very strategic. Thank you.
I believe if they pursue an expansion, if this moves forward, if they pursue an expansion and it fails, then just the expansion fails, not the whole bylaw, which I think is could be conceived as a risk. And similar inquiries. Go ahead.
Thank you. I also have a question regarding the Schedule A map that accompanies the copy of the bylaw for council. On the lot, waterfront lot between Vancouver Street and Main Street, there's a preponderance of dots representing BIA properties. That's the lot from which Bjordal Construction operates. There's another part of the map immediately across from the Under One Roof facility, across Main Street from the library parking lot, also a preponderance of dots representing BIA properties. I wonder if that's a question to be put to our GIS team, just to confirm the circumstances of those dots, whether that is a correction that may need to be made to Schedule A map. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions on this? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I it's clear that the ask of us is just to facilitate the process going forward. As a district, we're not taking a position on whether or not this is a good thing. As individual councillors, are there any prohibitions on us saying this is a good thing or a bad thing? Or is it just the district doesn't do that as a whole?
I think it's coming to council for a decision. It's at the discretion of council if we want to proceed on it. So I suppose individual council can venture comments. And you're trying to say like the organization when the petition period starts, you mean like campaigning for or against, or yes, yeah, so I think that's up to individual councillors if we move it forward. It's just the organization, like our comms team, everything else is about executing a process. Be similar to an election process in my opinion, but I'll go to staff.
Thank you, through the chair. It's important to note that the district as a body are running this counter petition or petition against process. And so councillors should remain neutral moving forward, as council will be passing the bylaw subject to the results of the petition process.
Okay. Any other questions here? So can we move these all together?
Through you, Chair, we would like the first two to be moved separately, and then the second screen of recommendations can all be moved together.
So the first two moved separately.
Individually.
Thank you for the extra clarity. Thank you. So I will move the first that council support a local area service on council initiative subject to the petition against process for renewal of the downtown Squamish business improvement area. Councillor Stoner seconds. I think just speaking on this piece, this is about, to me, this is the part that talks about the mapping. And earlier in the conversation, we've heard that there might be some interest in and some merit in exploring an expansion into these areas that have developed since the boundaries that we're discussing here were established. And I think the first most important thing is that we have a downtown Business Improvement Association, and in a subsequent process, a change in boundaries may be appropriate. But I do think that exists outside of this, and we can contemplate many things, whether it's expanding over onto 3rd Avenue or what does expanded pieces over at Sea and Sky look like, and there's a lot of questions here that I do think should be addressed, but I think that's wholly appropriate to be done at a future date. So I'll be supporting the resolution. Councilor Pettingill.
Yeah, just two things, and I appreciate those comments. For clarity, my question about can councillors be actively campaigning on a position? I don't actually have an interest in doing so. It's just there's sometimes very particular rules around this, and I want to make sure I understood them, and I'm glad I asked. The other thing, and I always struggle with the BIA because a lot of the activities that happen here benefit the whole community, benefit the downtown via benefiting the whole community by bringing them downtown. And then we sometimes have additional grant requests for the BIA to do events. And I'm always struggling a bit with, well, got the funding, does it deserve another pool? I think this just complicates that decision for me, assuming this passes. So I just wanted to flag that it's always a bit of a tough one to wrap my mind around. But I appreciate the work that the BIA is doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments at this point? I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. I'll move the second that the District of Squamish Downtown Business Improvement Area Bylaw number 3182, 2025. Oh, yes.
I want to clarify the correction to Schedule A before this is on the floor. So I think there might be two options for council. You can consider first 3 readings with the dots removed from the schedule, or first and second reading with the schedule as corrected, which we'll present at 3rd reading at the beginning of September and continue with the process as defined in the staff presentation.
I like with removing the dots, it's really about the outline and then the appropriate properties inside of that. So I'll move first, second, we're doing first, second, and third, and then the petition is needed prior to adoption. Is that correct? Because sorry, just in your comments, you said that it can come back at 3rd reading but that would delay us till September before you can go for the petition. Is that correct?
For you, Chair, there's an option to do first and second. We could bring back the bylaw with the amended map for 3rd in the first meeting in September and still move forward on the proposed timeline.
I think that if council approves the outline, then staff goes forward and identifies the appropriate dots inside of that. So, and then that eliminates the need. Does that eliminate then? Are those dots important for the decision making, or does staff have the criteria to go through and make sure that Muni Hall or whatever these pieces are handled appropriately with just the outline?
Thank you. Through the chair, the legislation requires that the geographic area be identified, and so that's identified with the purple boundary. We don't need the dots on there, and it would be a recommendation to remove them and move forward. Thank you.
So, Council, just to try to get us through this, I'll move first, second, and third reading with Schedule A amended to remove the dots, identifying dots. Second by Councillor Hamilton. I think this is the most important thing to me is the geographic boundary of, and then staff will go through the process to make sure the appropriate addresses inside of that are identified. I think what was presented in the staff report is a useful for perhaps context, but not really what we needed to get this all the way over the line. And that process can happen between here and adoption. So I'm happy to move all three readings with the geographic boundary defined and those dots removed. Feels like the most streamlined path forward as well. I don't think we're here to debate exactly which properties are included or not. If we were, I would have supported seeing it back and adding an additional step in this room. Any other comments on this? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now the rest of the.
Seconded.
Yes, Councillor Hamilton seconded. Yeah. And then someone want to take the last five? Councillor French, you moving all of these together? Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Hamilton seconds. I think we've had a few opportunities to make comments, so I'll leave. Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. I'd like to recess this meeting as we have some business to attend to yet. So we'll recess this meeting and to reconvene following the special meeting number 2 that we're about to start at 6 o'clock. Thank you.